Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Now I'd like to recognize a gentleman from Texas, Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do something that's a little unorthodox, perhaps. I've got 5 minutes. We're going to start here, and I'm going to give you about 30 to 45 seconds. If you had your crystal ball here and you could get Congress to do one thing, what would it be? Dr. Gross, you're up.
One thing I would advocate for that clarity of where we are in those processes, whether it's registering a new chemical or whether we're looking at an extended use rule for the downstream users. That clarity for the users would be incredibly important for us.
Okay, now no copycats, right? Doctor, you're next.
Quickly, I would first add additional staff to the TSCA review process, and secondly, I would restore the independence and integrity of the Office of Research and Development.
Boy, y'all are short and sweet and to the point, huh? Mr. Corkwell, you're up next.
I would add that we need a predictable and timely process so that we can make wise investment decisions and to be sure we're going to get the chemistry to market.
Okay, Ms. Bertrand.
All right, going last. That's unfortunate because my neighbor here just used what I was going to say.
Well, if you're really good, you can lump them all together.
Right.
Were you making notes?
We need predictability, transparency. That's what manufacturers have said, is that they need a regulatory environment, that they understand timeframes, that the timeframes are met so that innovations can be moved into market.
Is there any hope for Congress to ever get to the point where we don't mess with something once we get a good process going? Anybody? You're shaking your head no.
No, that's, I don't think the answer is no, that there's no hope, but it takes a lot of work. I've had the privilege of working in 1990 on the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, and that took pretty much all of 2 years and consumed a tremendous amount of attention in the Congress. And it takes a lot of work and very dedicated staff in the agency and outside parties and in the Congress itself.
So I'm going to go with you, Mr. Corkwell, with a question. In your testimony, you mentioned the difference between hazard-based and risk-based regulation. Can you explain why a hazard-based approach where the focus is on theoretical harm rather than real-world use can actually prevent new chemistries from reaching the market? If you can, be specific about something that's happened recently.
Yeah, I can certainly use an analogy that I think everyone can understand. Right? A tiger has inherent hazards. A tiger in a cage at a zoo has a much lower risk. So if you're going to consider risk-based, it means considering not just the hazard of the chemistry, but how it's used and how it comes into contact with people and workers, which is why we follow OSHA standards, right? That is where proper PPE, personal protective equipment, for people that both manufacture the chemistries and use the chemistries in the manufacture of bigger products is so important.
Does that affect us in the United States competitiveness around the globe?
Yes, it does. So as we mentioned during the testimony, chemistry is often the start of a long value chain. If new chemistries cannot be used here in America or imported into America, that means the next step in that value chain, whatever you're making from those chemistries, whether it's cell phones or airplanes, is likely to be done in another country.
No kidding. This is for all witnesses. I've got about a minute and a half. Last May, President Trump issued his, quote, gold standard, end quote, science executive order that directs federal agencies to improve scientific integrity, transparency, and reproducibility in their research and decision-making. It is vital that the public has confidence, right, in that science to be able to make that policy. So briefly, how can the government work within, now don't go back to what you said earlier, try to think of something new. How can the government work within the industry to improve that confidence? We're going to go from this way, Ms. Bertrand, starting with you. How can the government work within that industry?
So I think there's an opportunity for public-private partnerships. That's something that has helped with NASA with its success, to find mechanisms to identify best available science, meet those standards, and leverage the expertise and the information from industry.
And that's from NASA. Actually, I have about 6,500 people who work for the NASA subcontractors live in my district just south of the good doctor. Mr. Corkwell, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what I would most recommend is that we look at the data that's available. The people that are doing the research for many times years, if not decades, on these new chemistries have the available data. In my particular case, our company uses EPA-approved methods at third-party labs to do all of our toxicity tests. in addition to all of the testing we do internally in our labs here in the U.S. And we just want to make sure that data, that best available science, is taken into consideration and looked at.
I'm sorry, I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.